What would you do if the person you trusted the most sold you to the highest bidder? For Amara, this wasn't a question. It was her reality. Amara was only 10 years old when her world shattered. One moment, her parents were laughing in the kitchen, making dinner, and the next, flashing red and blue lights reflected off the rain-soaked pavement outside their home. She stood there, soaked and trembling, clutching a police officer's hand as he whispered softly, "She's the only survivor." That night, she lost everything. Her mother's gentle voice, her father's protective arms, gone. In their place came her aunt and uncle. At first, Amara thought it was a blessing. She thought family meant safety, but she was wrong. So very wrong. Life with her aunt wasn't terrible. The woman tried, in her own way, to care for Amara. But her uncle, from the first day, his eyes made her uncomfortable. When Amara turned 13, she noticed the way he looked at her when no one else was around. Lingering stares, that crooked smile that never reached his eyes. And then the whispers began. Little comments in the dark hallway when her aunt was asleep. "You're growing into a beautiful woman, Amara. Men would pay good money for someone like you." The words made her freeze every time. Her heart would pound so hard it echoed in her ears. She didn't know what to do. She was just a child, and he was supposed to protect her. By 16, it got worse. He'd corner her in the kitchen, leaning in close, his breath thick with alcohol. "You have no idea what men would do for you. You could make us rich." Amara hated him. She feared him. Every night she locked her door and wedged a chair under the handle, because deep down she believed one day he would snap. By the time she turned 20, Amara thought maybe, just maybe, she'd survive this. Maybe he'd lose interest, but she was wrong. One night changed everything. It was late. Her aunt was out of town. Amara was scrolling on her phone when she heard a knock on her bedroom door. Hard. Urgent. "Amara, get dressed. We're going out," her uncle's voice commanded. Her stomach twisted. Where are we going?" she asked through the door. "Don't ask questions. Just do what I say." Something in his tone made her blood run cold. Every instinct screamed, "Don't go." "I'm not going anywhere," she said, voice trembling. Silence followed. A long, terrifying silence. Then, bang! The door slammed open. The chair she had wedged toppled to the floor. He had broken in. His eyes were wild, his jaw clenched. "You think you can disobey me?" he snarled. "No. Please, I don't want to go," Amara cried. Backing into the corner, he grabbed her wrist so hard, her bones ached. "You're coming with me. Don't make me hurt you." For the first time, she saw something in his eyes that chilled her to the core, desperation. He dragged her out barefoot and shoved her into his car. She screamed, kicked, clawed, but it didn't matter. The engine roared, and soon they were speeding into the night. "Where are you taking me?" Amara demanded, her voice breaking. He didn't answer. His knuckles gripped the steering wheel tight. His breathing was harsh, uneven. "Uncle, please don't do this," she whispered. Finally, he spoke. "You should thank me, Amara. Do you know how much you're worth? Do you know what a beautiful woman like you can bring? Tonight, we get out of this miserable life." Her blood ran cold. "Get out of this life?" she repeated, her voice shaking. "What do you mean?" He glanced at her with a twisted grin. "Someone's paying for you. A man who can give you a life I never could." Her heart stopped. "No, no, you can't do this," she screamed, clawing at the door handle. But the car was locked. Her screams turned into sobs. "Please, I'm your family." But to him, she was never family. She was currency. After what felt like forever, the car pulled into an abandoned building. Amara's stomach churned as he yanked her out and dragged her inside. The air was cold, damp, reeking of mold, and then she saw them. Two men stood in the shadows, one tall and bald, dressed in a black leather jacket, the other dressed in black jeans and a grey hoodie. They looked at her the way predators look at prey. The bald man smirked. "So this is her?" "The girl?" Her uncle shoved her forward. "Yeah, this is Amara, just like I promised." She stumbled, barely catching herself before she hit the ground. "Please, don't do this," she cried, tears spilling down her face. The bald man chuckled. "She's even prettier than the photos." Then came the sound of a zipper. Her uncle unzipped a black duffel bag. Inside, stacks of cash gleamed under the dim light. Money. Her life. In cash. "No, please, uncle, don't leave me," Amara screamed, reaching for him. But he shoved her away. Hard. "You'll thank me one day," he muttered, and then he walked out. Just like that. "Put her in the car." The bald man grabbed her arm. She fought, kicked, screamed until her throat burned. But it was useless. They dragged her outside and threw her into the back seat of a black SUV. As the door slammed shut, she saw her uncle counting the money with a smile. That was the last image before the car sped into the darkness. And in that moment, Amara knew one thing. Her life would never be the same. The SUV pulled through massive iron gates that creaked open slowly, revealing a mansion so grand it seemed like something out of a dream. Except this was no dream. This was her nightmare. The building loomed high into the dark night, its walls black and sleek like obsidian, sharp edges glinting under dim floodlights. Guards in suits stood at every corner, armed and expressionless. The car came to a stop at the front steps, and Amara's heart pounded so hard she could barely breathe. The bald man yanked the door open and dragged her out. Her bare feet touched the cold marble ground. She tried to fight, tried to pull away, but her body was weak from crying. They shoved her inside the mansion, the scent of expensive cologne and leather hitting her nose instantly. The grand hallway was lined with black marble pillars and chandeliers that glittered like frozen stars. "It's beautiful," she thought for a split second, before reality crashed back. Beauty meant nothing when you were a prisoner. They led her down a long hallway and into a room. It wasn't a dungeon like she expected, but it wasn't freedom either. A single bed sat in the middle. A small table and chair in the corner. No windows big enough to escape through. The bald man grinned, his eyes sweeping over her like she was an item on a menu. "You're even prettier up close," he murmured, stepping toward her. Amara backed away, her heart thudding violently. "Please don't touch me," she whispered. He chuckled darkly. "Why not? You'd like me better than that old man." Before his hand could reach her face, the other man, a tall one with sharp features and cold eyes, grabbed his arm. "Don't be stupid," he hissed. "You lay a finger on her, and you'll answer to the boss." The bald man scowled, jerking his arm away. "Fine. But don't tell me he'll notice if I take a little taste." "He'll notice," the tall one said firmly, his tone dropping to a deadly whisper. "And you know what happens to people who cross him." That shut him up. With a final glare, the bald man spat on the floor and stormed out. The other man followed, but not before locking the heavy steel door behind them. Clang! The sound of the lock echoed like a death sentence. Amara ran to the door, pounding on it with both fists. "Please, please let me go. I just want to go home. I won't tell anyone, I swear." Her voice cracked, tears streaming down her face. She kept banging until her hands hurt, until her throat burned from screaming. But no one came. Eventually, her strength gave out. She slid down the door and curled into a ball in the cold corner of the room. "Mom, Dad," she whispered between sobs, "why did you leave me? I need you." Her cries filled the empty room. The world outside moved on, but for Amara, time stopped. She cried until exhaustion dragged her into a restless sleep, praying, begging for God to send someone, anyone to rescue her. But when the sun rose, nothing changed. Morning light streamed faintly through the small barred window. Amara stirred, her body aching from the hard floor. For a moment she hoped it was all a nightmare, that she'd wake up in her old room with her aunt calling her for breakfast. But the cold reality pressed against her like chains. They sold me. The door creaked open. She jumped to her feet, heart slamming in her chest. And then she saw him. A man stepped inside, moving with quiet authority. He was tall, towering even, with broad shoulders wrapped in a perfectly tailored black pants and a black t-shirt. His skin was rich, deep brown, his jaw sharp, his presence overwhelming. Everything about him radiated power, control, danger. His eyes, dark, piercing, met hers, and for a second, Amara forgot how to breathe. Randall Okolie. She didn't know his name yet, but the air seemed to whisper it. He stopped a few feet away, hands in his pockets, gaze sweeping over her with a calmness that chilled her to the bone. "You're awake." His voice was deep, smooth, but laced with something cold. Amara swallowed hard, her voice trembling. "Please, let me go. I don't belong here. I just want to go home." He tilted his head slightly, studying her like one might study a rare artifact. Then, a faint smirk tugged at his lips. "Home," he repeated slowly, as if tasting the word. "Yes," she whispered, desperate. "Please, I'll do anything. Just let me go." His smirk faded, his expression hardened, eyes narrowing just enough to make her knees weaken. "You think you have a home to go back to?" His voice dropped, low and dangerous. Her brows furrowed. What do you mean?" He stepped closer, his shadow swallowing hers. "If you were wanted." His tone was like ice. "You wouldn't be here." The words hit her like a slap. She shook her head in disbelief, tears welling again. No, that's not true. My aunt, she let you go," he cut in sharply. "Your uncle sold you. No one is coming for you." Amara, hearing her name on his lips, made her shiver. How do you know my name?" she whispered. He smiled faintly, but it wasn't warm. It was dark, dangerous. "I know everything about you." Amara backed away instinctively, her back hitting the cold wall. His presence was suffocating, intimidating, yet magnetic in a way that terrified her even more. Why am I here?" she asked, voice breaking. His gaze lingered on her face for a long, heavy moment before he finally answered. "Because I bought you." The words rang in her ears like a death bell. The heavy door slammed shut behind Randall, leaving Amara trembling in silence. His words echoed in her skull like thunder. "Because I bought you." Her breath came in shallow bursts, her knees weak. She slid down the wall until she was crouched on the cold floor. Tears streamed silently down her cheeks as reality settled in. She was not going home. Her uncle had sold her like an object to this man. She hugged her knees to her chest, rocking slightly as thoughts spiraled out of control. What does he want from me? Why did he pay for me? Will he hurt me? Will he? She shut her eyes tight, biting her lip to stop the sobs. But the images in her head only grew darker. What if he wanted to do the very thing her uncle had always threatened? What if this was it? Her life, her dignity, her everything, stripped away in this cold mansion. Panic clawed at her throat. She stumbled to her feet and began pacing the room. There was no escape, no phone, no window wide enough to climb through. No one who cared enough to come for her. If I'm going to die here, it should be by my choice. The thought came like a whisper at first. Then it grew louder, clearer. She searched the room desperately, her trembling fingers closing around a broken shard of glass from the water tumbler she'd shattered the night before. She stared at it, her reflection fractured in its jagged edges. Her tears fell harder as she raised the glass to her wrist. "I'm sorry, Mom, Dad," she whispered. "I can't do this." The mansion was quiet, the storm outside pounding against the windows as thunder rolled in the distance. Randall walked down the hall, his steps measured, his hands tucked casually in his pockets as always. But his mind wasn't calm. Something about that girl, her eyes, the way they looked at him, not with greed like everyone else, not with hunger for his wealth, but with raw, broken fear. He hated that look. Pushing the thought away, he reached her door and opened it without knocking. "Amara." The words froze in his throat. She lay crumpled on the floor, motionless, her arms slick with blood. The broken shard of glass glinted beside her. For a moment, his entire world tilted. "No, no, no, no." His voice cracked as he rushed forward, dropping to his knees. He shook her gently at first. "Amara, wake up. Do you hear me?" Nothing. His breath quickened, his chest tightening painfully. He pressed his fingers to her neck and found the faintest pulse. Relief washed over him, but it was drowned by fear. "Don't you dare do this to me," he muttered harshly, scooping her into his arms. Her small, fragile body felt weightless against him, her head lolling weakly. For the first time in years, Randall O'Collier, the man who ruled empires, who inspired fear with just a look, felt his hands tremble. He carried her swiftly through the mansion, barking orders at the staff as he stormed toward his wing. "Get Dr. Mensah here, now." The guards scrambled, panic etched on their faces. They had never seen him like this. Amara stirred slowly, consciousness pulling her from the dark void. Her eyelids fluttered open, and the first thing she saw was grey silk sheets beneath her. The room was massive, dimly lit by golden lamps. This wasn't her small prison room. Then she felt it, a presence, heavy, watching. Her gaze shifted. And there he was. Randall sat in a black armchair near the bed, his elbows on his knees, his hands clasped together. His head was slightly bowed, but when he lifted it, her breath caught. His eyes were red, not just from exhaustion, from something deeper, something raw. He stood slowly, walking toward her with quiet, predatory grace. Every step was measured, controlled, but his jaw was tight, and when he spoke, his voice was soft, yet sharp enough to cut. "How dare you?" Amara flinched, her throat dry. Her voice cracked, barely a whisper. "How dare you try to take your life?" His tone carried no yell, no scream, but the authority in it made the air heavy. "Do you have any idea what you've done?" Tears welled in her eyes again. Her voice broke as she sobbed. "Why are you doing this to me? I don't want to be here. I just want to go home." Randall stared at her for a long, agonizing moment, his expression unreadable, his fists clenched at his sides. Finally, he spoke, his voice low, controlled, yet something in it burned. "This is home now." The words hit her like a punch. She shook her head violently. "No, no, it's not. You can't just—" "I can," he said calmly, stepping closer, his towering frame casting a shadow over her. His dark eyes locked on hers, and for the first time, she saw something flicker there. Anger, yes, but something else too, something he didn't want her to see. "You belong to me, Amara," he said softly, almost like a vow. "And you will never—" He leaned in slightly, his voice a deadly whisper. "Never try that again." Her tears spilled as she turned her face away, sobbing silently. He straightened, exhaling slowly, as if forcing himself back under control. "Rest," he said finally, his tone softer now, almost tired. "When you wake, food will be ready." Without another word, he turned and walked to the door. He paused briefly, his hand on the handle, then left without looking back. The door clicked shut, and the silence that followed was deafening. Amara buried her face in her hands and cried until sleep took her again. But even in her dreams, his voice lingered like a chain around her heart. "You belong to me." The afternoon sun spilled through the tall windows, filling the dining hall with a golden glow. The long mahogany table gleamed beneath the crystal chandelier. At its head sat Randall, dressed in a perfectly tailored black shirt, sleeves rolled up to reveal strong forearms. His posture was as composed as ever, but his mind was restless. She hadn't spoken to him since last night, not a single word beyond yes or no. The door opened quietly, and his chief maid, Lydia, entered with a small smile. "She's ready, sir," she announced softly. Randall nodded. "Bring her in." Moments later, Amara stepped into the room. Her simple dress had been changed for something elegant, yet modest. Cream silk that flowed gently to her knees. Her hair had been brushed, falling neatly over her shoulders. But what caught Randall's attention wasn't the dress. It was her eyes, still guarded, still wounded. He stood immediately, the perfect gentleman, as she approached. For a man feared by empires, his small gesture seemed oddly tender. "Amara," he greeted, his voice smooth, yet unreadable. She gave a slight nod, her throat dry. She didn't want to eat with him, she didn't want to see him, but staying locked away forever wasn't an option either. Randall pulled out the chair for her. She hesitated, then sat down. He returned to his seat, and the silent tension between them stretched like a wire ready to snap. The table was covered in dishes, grilled salmon, roasted vegetables, bowls of exotic fruits. Randall gestured toward the spread. "Eat," he said simply. Amara picked at the food, her mind racing. She barely heard him as he tried to start a conversation. "How are you feeling?" "Better than yesterday, I hope." "You should have told me what you needed instead of—" His voice trailed, tight with controlled emotion. She gave short, empty responses, eyes fixed on her plate. But inside, her thoughts were frantic. "This is my chance. I'm out of that room. If I can get outside, maybe I can run." Her fingers tightened around her fork as she gathered courage. Finally, she looked up, forcing a small, shaky smile. "Could we take a walk after lunch? In the garden?" Randall raised an eyebrow, clearly surprised. "You want to go outside?" "Yes," she said quickly, trying to sound casual. "I just need some fresh air. Please." For a long moment, he studied her. Then slowly, he nodded. "Fine." After lunch, the mansion's gardens stretched like a paradise. Lush green lawns, roses blooming in perfect rows, fountains whispering under the sunlight. Birds sang in the distance, their sweet melodies a cruel reminder of freedom. Amara walked beside Randall, forcing herself to breathe normally. She asked questions, pretending to be curious. "How long have you lived here? Who designed the gardens? Do you have family?" Her voice was light, almost playful, but inside, her heart thundered. Every step was calculated, every glance measured. For the first time since she arrived, Randall's expression softened. She was smiling, talking. It wasn't real, he didn't know that, but something about seeing her like this made something warm flicker in his chest. Maybe, just maybe, she was beginning to accept this life. He didn't notice the way her eyes kept darting toward the high gates at the far end of the estate. A guard approached. whispering something in Randall's ear. His jaw tightened slightly. He turned to her. "Stay here. I'll be back in a moment." She nodded, feigning calm. "Of course." The second he walked away, her pulse spiked. "Now." She took off running. Her bare feet pounded against the stone pathway, dress fluttering as she sprinted across the vast garden. Her lungs burned, but she didn't stop, not even when she heard distant shouts behind her. The gates were closer now. Just a few more steps. Freedom was right there. She reached out, her fingers brushing the cold iron bars. And then, a black van screeched to a stop in front of the gates, blocking her path. The doors flew open, and two men jumped out, their faces masked. Amara's heart dropped. "No, no, no." She turned to run, but one man grabbed her from behind, yanking her back as she screamed and kicked violently. "Let me go!" The other man clamped a hand over her mouth as they dragged her toward the van. "Amara!" The roar tore from Randall's throat as he saw the scene unfold from across the garden. He bolted forward, his long strides eating the distance like fire. His guards scrambled after him, guns drawn, shouting commands. Amara thrashed wildly, managing to kick one man in the chest, but the other slammed the door shut just as Randall reached the gates. The van sped off, tires spitting gravel, leaving nothing but dust in its wake. Randall skidded to a halt, chest heaving, his fists clenched so tightly his knuckles turned white. His dark eyes burned with fury as he stared at the fading vehicle. Then slowly, dangerously, his gaze locked on the number plate, memorizing it. His voice was low, trembling with rage as he muttered one promise to himself. "They're dead. Who took Amara? Why do they want her? And what will Randall do when he finds them?" The hunt begins. Thank you for listening. If you enjoyed this tale, remember to like, share, and subscribe so you don't miss the next journey into our African stories. Until then, stay curious, stay kind,